Like and subscribe right now, or this spider will crawl on your face while you're sleeping.
As long as the world has existed, we've had prisons. We can track prisons back to even the Stone Age, where there wasn't as many rules to break, but still, people managed to land on the wrong side of the law. Hence are born the prison escape stories. Now, there are literally thousands of great stories that have happened all throughout history. Some prisoners of war managed to escape prisons, as was depicted in the movie 7 Years in Tibet, starring Brad Pitt, while others have managed to be snuck out of prisons all around the world and continue fleeing from the law. However, there are some characters out there that have managed to evade the law too many times and have not escaped once, but have managed to escape prison multiple times. So today we're going to bring you the stories of these guys. Here are the 10 greatest prison escapes ever. Let's go. Number 10. Pascal Payet. Pascal Payet, a French criminal convicted of murder, was well known for escaping prison Hollywood style, using a helicopter. In 2001, Payet escaped for the first time when he arranged for a helicopter to land on the prison roof and lift him to freedom. 2 years later, while still on the run, he flew a hijacked chopper back to the prison to break out 3 of his friends. All 4 were captured 3 weeks later. Payet was placed in solitary confinement and was shuffled from prison to prison to make planning an escape difficult. But despite this, he pulled off yet another daring jailbreak in 2007. This time, he used outside connections to hijack a helicopter, which was then redirected to a state penitentiary. 3 men attacked the facility and escaped with Payet. However, he was caught 3 months later in Spain and has remained in custody ever since.
Before we move on, I've got a little challenge for you that will take just 5 seconds to complete. So here's the deal. You just leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell and you get 25 years of amazing luck. Try it. It really works.
Number 9. Willie Sutton. Willie Sutton, also known as the actor in Slick Willie, was considered one of the most notorious bank robbers in history. He committed his brazen crimes in broad daylight by impersonating a policeman, messenger, postal officer, maintenance man, etc. In 1931, Sutton was sentenced to 30 years in prison for assault and robbery. However, he escaped in 1932 by scaling the prison wall on 2 ladders. He spent 2 years on the run before being recaptured and sentenced to 25 to 50 years for a bank robbery. Again, he escaped, this time through a tunnel. He was caught the same day. Sutton was transferred to another facility and given life imprisonment as a 4th-time offender. In 1947, he escaped by dressing as a guard and became one of FBI's most wanted fugitives. He was arrested in 1952, sentenced to life imprisonment and an additional 105 years. However, he was released in 1969 due to ill health. He died 11 years later at the age of 79. Number 8. Richard Lee McNair. Richard Lee McNair was arrested in 1988 for killing 1 man and injuring another during an attempted robbery. He freed himself from the handcuffs by using his lip balm as a lubricant and escaped the police station. However, he was chased, recaptured, and incarcerated. He was given 2 life sentences plus 30 years for the crimes he committed. In 1992, McNair escaped again by crawling through the prison's ventilation ducts. He eluded capture for 10 months before he was found and sent to a federal prison. McNair was labeled a problem inmate, but even under watchful eye of federal custody, he was able to execute a much more elaborate jailbreak. In 2006, McNair used his job in the prison manufacturing area to craft himself an escape pod complete with breathing tube. He hid the pod under a stack of mail bags and waited. The pallet of mail bags was shrink-wrapped and moved to a warehouse beyond the prison gates. McNair cut himself free and walked away. Hours later, McNair was stopped and questioned by a police officer taking part in a manhunt for the missing convict. The conversation was recorded on the patrol car's dash camera, and even though McNair slipped up and gave 2 false names, the officer let him go. McNair remained free for 18 months until he finally surrendered during a chase in 2007. He was sent to a maximum security prison with almost no human interaction, and he is still there to this day. Number 7. Alfred George Hines. Alfred George Hines was an orphan who ran away from the children's home when he was 7. He was arrested for the first time for petty theft but escaped from juvenile detention and joined the British Army. His next brush with the law occurred in 1953, when he was arrested for a jewelry theft and sentenced to 12 years in prison. However, he escaped 2 years later by opening a locked door and climbing a wall. This earned him the nickname Houdini Hines. He spent 248 days as a fugitive before being arrested and sent to jail for the third time. While incarcerated, he filed a complaint against 2 officers. During the hearing, he managed to lock 2 police escorts in the toilet and escape the courthouse on foot. However, he was caught 5 hours later at the airport. About a year later, Hines escaped once more and remained free for 2 years. He petitioned his legal case and publicized the story of his life, which gained him much attention from the public. He died in 1991. Number 6. Yoshi Shiratori. Yoshi Shiratori was a Japanese man whose life story was immortalized in the famous Japanese novel Hago. In 1933, he was arrested on suspicion of murder and robbery and was facing a possible death sentence. However, he escaped in 1936 by picking the lock of his handcuffs by using a wire. Shiratori was recaptured twice more and successfully escaped both accounts. In 1942, he climbed through a vent in the prison's ceiling, and in 1944, he escaped by slipping out of his handcuffs. In 1946, Shiratori was arrested for a 4th time and received a death sentence. Awaiting his execution, he sawed through the floorboards of his cell with a piece of sheet metal, used a bowl to dig his way to freedom, and successfully escaped. In 1948, he admitted to a police officer that he was an escaped convict. He was sent back to jail with a 20-year sentence, but was paroled in 1961. Shiratori died from a heart attack in 1979 and became known as the man who escaped prison 4 times. Number 5. Stephen J. Russell. In the early 90s, Stephen J. Russell was convicted of fraud and sentenced to 6 months in jail. However, after just 4 months, he simply walked out of prison by impersonating a guard. Once he was caught and safely back behind bars, he soon managed to escape again. This time he was impersonating a judge to reduce his own bail. He then fled to Florida. He was recaptured only after a week and was convicted of embezzlement and sentenced to 45 years. He escaped for the 3rd time by impersonating a doctor and walking right out the front door, despite being under maximum security. Another 45 years was added to his sentence for this prison break. Back behind bars, Russell took laxatives to lose a lot of weight and tampered with his medical records to claim that he had AIDS. He was sent to a hospital where he easily escaped. Shortly after, he sent a fake death certificate to the court, but the authorities didn't buy it. He was convicted for the last time. He is now serving a 144-year sentence in solitary confinement. Number 4. Mundine Joe. Joseph Bolitho Johns, famously known as Mundine Joe, was convicted of larceny in 1849 and was conditionally pardoned in 1855, but was arrested again in 1861 for horse theft. He escaped while awaiting trial, but was recaptured and served 3 years in jail. In 1865, Joe was arrested once again for killing an ox. He made 4 escape attempts and was successful 3 of the times. He was put in solitary confinement, but even that didn't stop Joe. He escaped again in 1867. Inevitably, he ended up back in prison until he was granted an early release in 1871. He died in the Fremantle Lunatic Asylum in 1900. Number 3. Jack Shepherd. Jack Shepherd was a notorious thief and robber who was extremely popular amongst the poor. He was arrested for pickpocketing, but escaped his cell by making a hole in the wall and removing iron and wooden bars from the window. In 1724, Shepherd was sentenced to death for burglary. Once again, he escaped, but not for long. After being imprisoned, he managed to slip off his handcuffs and pick several locks. He then used his blanket to slide off the roof and escape. He was arrested 2 weeks later without a fight and was sentenced to death by hanging. Even facing the noose, Shepherd had a plan. His accomplices would revive him after the crowd dispersed. Not surprisingly, that plan failed. After Shepherd's death, his infamous escapes inspired many plays and novels. And now get ready for today's top pick. At number 2, Nachman Farkas. Nachman Farkas was an Israeli boxer who turned his passion for sports to crime. In 1956, he was arrested for an armed robbery and was sent to jail. He escaped 2 years later, but then turned himself in shortly afterwards. He was arrested a couple times more for violence, break-ins, and theft, but he managed to escape from the jail every single time. After 4 escapes, he was imprisoned once more and spent 7 years locked up. He decided to go back to boxing in 1969. In the following decade, he was arrested multiple times for violence and drug-related crimes. By the end of the 70s, he gave up crimes, married, had children. He was found dead in 2014 under unusual circumstances. Probably the drug habit didn't leave him after all. Number 1. Brian Bo Larson. Brian Bo Larson has the highest number of prison breaks, with 22 successful escapes. Yeah, 22. 22! Larson grew up with an abusive and alcoholic father. He started his life of crime at the age of 8 with petty theft. He robbed a gas station when he was 13 and then was put under foster care. Larson started his long list of jailbreaks in 1989. He escaped prison a further 14 times between 1990 and 2000. In one dramatic escape in 2000, Larson stole a car and wrecked it during a police pursuit. Abandoning the vehicle, he continued on foot into a forest where a police dog eventually found him. Multiple escapes later, in 2014, Larson was on the run again. This time, he was arrested after police found him with a prostitute and with drugs in his possession. He broke out of jail for the 22nd time on December 13, 2014, and became known as the Escape King. Larson was finally tracked down. He was with a prostitute, and according to her, he was so high that he crashed through fences and started fighting the air. However, by the time the police got there, he had already fled the scene. He was eventually located and arrested, fortunately. Nobody knows whether the 22 escapes will remain his record or if Larson will manage to escape for a 23rd time. We'll just have to wait and see. Thank you so much for watching today's video. We hope that you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for some more great content.